Okay, so we are back after our Valentine's Day hiatus. I'm here with Jance. Chris will be joining us. Jance, how are you today?
And I'm doing all right, man. Chilling, man. Just ready to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think there's no better way for us to start than about a recent report about the number one prospect in the nation, and that's Arch Manning. The report stating that he's down to two institutions, Texas and Alabama. Now, to be fair, I said this in the video I did earlier because I covered all four teams involved in his recruiting battle. As of right now, from Arch Manning, I've only ever heard that there's a top four. I haven't heard anything about a top two being Texas and Alabama from Arch Manning. But at the end of the day, those two teams would make sense because of the longevity in which they've recruited Arch. So, what was your thoughts when you saw that?
I was super stoked and I was super excited for it. Especially being an Alabama fan, it's great to just keep getting elite quarterbacks. I mean, the five stars continue to roll on. I mean, you look at Bryce Young, you look at Ty Simpson. I mean, before Bama used to get 5 stars, but it was always a bad rep that we couldn't produce, that we couldn't develop talent there, that we're not going to get them to the NFL. And now it's starting to. I mean, you look at Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, and now Bryce Young just looks like he's going to be in the next line. It's phenomenal. It's great for the institutions, great for Alabama as a whole, and it gives a great shot to get them. But if we don't get Arch Manning, then we have Ty Simpson. There's other 5-star quarterbacks that Alabama can go for. So, it's not like Ole Miss or even Texas even has Quinn Ewers, but they would love to have Arch Manning right there. I think the same situation would be for us. Not to mention that I think that when Arch Manning does land, Bryce Young most likely will be on his way out. So it creates competition and it creates headlines between two 5-star quarterbacks. So I mean, overall, I'm super stoked. I'm excited, and hopefully we can get them.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, it's awesome that Alabama's in the position they are where they're getting into these battles for the 5-star quarterbacks. It's not just Bryce Young, another 5-star quarterback out of California is really high on Bama. Bama's really high on him and Nico. But at the end of the day, every institution would love to have Arch Manning. And I certainly don't think that this is the end of the recruitment, right? Like, as I said in the video, I haven't seen Arch say anything officially. So I covered all four teams. And so with that, you talked about Texas, you talked about Alabama. We also need to remember the relationship that Ole Miss has with the Manning family and Archie and his uncles and in his dad. Well, one of his uncles, I should say. Eli went to Ole Miss, Peyton went to Tennessee, and almost burned that family to the ground. But that's a conversation for a different day. So every institution in the battle, I think, makes sense. Georgia, even to a degree, like you could argue that they don't do well with the 5-star quarterbacks they get. And sure, like it's hard to push back against that, but at the end of the day, they did just win a national championship, and you can't take that away from them. So they do have a recruiting pitch. And one thing that we need to remember is when we're talking about these high level quarterbacks, these guys want to be around guys that they have faith in, right? And that's one thing Georgia does very well. Every year we're talking about this, it's Alabama, Georgia for the number one recruiting class. Well, what that creates is it creates an environment of trust, not only in the coaches being able to trust the players they're fielding, but in the players being able to trust the player next to them. That's massive, especially for the quarterback position. So all institutions listed make a ton of sense, and I wouldn't be surprised to see more institutions added in, would you?
Mm-mm. I would not be surprised at all. I mean, it would just make sense, honestly. It's too early in the process for you to just kind of eliminate, kind of to be down, to the 2 to 3 schools. I think the more and more Arch Manning takes his visits, the more and more he gets. Not to mention that we have, these new universities are coaching. They're forming new coaching staffs, which will develop relationships with Arch Manning. So it's too early in the process. I think the more visits you take, the more coaches you'll talk to and develop those relationships, this thing is going to widen out.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, look, however it happens, I'm excited to be able to watch it. It's not every day that the number one recruit in the nation, who's also the number one quarterback in the nation, fields the last name Manning, right? That demands the
Mm-hmm.
eyes of the college football world watching this. So it's something we've got to just keep an eye on. Lando coming in here saying, "How we doing tonight?" Lando, thank you for popping in. Hope you're doing good, man. We're just talking about the battle for Arch Manning and how that's just going to be wild in all of college football. But speaking of Alabama, Jance, Bama returns a ton of talent next year. But when I'm looking at this, one area I think we need to talk about is the defensive line, right? Because it's easy for you and I to say, to those of you and the viewers that aren't Bama fans, it's easy for you to hear Jance and I say we return a ton of talent. We do. But there's one area we lose that I think might be harder to replicate than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I think we have the means to replicate it.
Mm-hmm.
But, we lost 9 sacks from the interior in just one person. So when you're looking at the defensive front, what are you thinking right now for how Bama is going to go about replacing what they lost?
Well, I think Bama does have a potential replacement. I think Byron Young could be that guy because he reminds me a lot of what Fedarian Mathis and Christian Barmore, even Quentin Williams had to be. Because we saw flashes from those players, like before they had predecessors that were dominant pieces. Then we had to ask the same question, well, who can replicate it? But we were really looking at, Quentin Williams in 2017, I think he had around 2 sacks, but he was known for being one of the better interior pass rushers on the team. He just wasn't a complete run stopper. Then the same thing happened with Barmore. And the same thing happened with Fedarian Mathis, where, again, you're starting to see a pattern go on. And now now Byron Young is that dude. Byron Young was one of the better pass rushers that wasn't really dominant, but he would make a play. He would make a play in the backfield here and there. He'll definitely get to the quarterback and have a sack one of those days. So you didn't really see that from Dale. You didn't see that from Abobi. You didn't even see that from Timothy Smith. I really, the guy that really, that once in a while flashed on my screen was Byron Young. So I think he has the potential to do that. That's the guy with the most upside out of kind of the returning starters that are going to be back from that defensive line in the interior. But I would not be surprised at all if we start to see some of these 5 stars, right? Damian Payne's a guy that, that Bama fans have been hyping up for a while. Didn't really get to see a lot of playing time. Now, I think that was due because of death, but I think that Damian Payne has a really good opportunity to kind of showcase what he can do there. They have a lot of defensive line talent there. Anquan Barnes has been someone that I keep hearing over and over again that's really starting to get some hype there. And he was part of last year's class, so I would not be surprised if he gets in the mix. Bama has a lot of talent, Curtis Perry. So I'm excited. We have a lot of depth. Yeah. Nick Saban is in love with Curtis Perry. So I would not be surprised at all if, we get that flash player, maybe not right off the gate, but very similar to Fedarian Mathis or Christian Barmore. It took him like 7 or 8 weeks in order for these guys to finally get in tune and become the NFL draft prospects that they are right now. So I think it's going to be a little while. We might struggle a little bit, but I think overall wise, we'll get that player.
Yeah, the interior of your defensive line is so important. And luckily for the Crimson Tide, they're in a situation where they arguably have the deepest pass rush room in the nation, right? When you look at it top to bottom, it is insane how deep that room is, and it just got even deeper. If they can have a defensive front that is at least just a stone wall against the run, I think that in and of itself will be of massive benefit. But at the end of the day, you never argue with the ability to have an interior that can affect the quarterback as well as affect the run. I mean, look at the NFL. That's exactly what's happening in the NFL. You're looking at defensive linemen becoming more athletic, more explosive, because it's just another way to get the quarterback off of his spot. And in a lot of ways, it's another way to get the quarterback into position for your edges to come in and take advantage. So you talked about a lot of names, but here are some names that, I think would have been on people's forefronts, but they didn't have the year, I don't think that many of us expected they would, because I completely agree with you about Byron Young. Byron Young is an individual, I talked about it in some videos. When I'm watching game film, there are plays, he flies off the screen. I mean, he might not even be the one to make the play, but he flies off the screen, and you're instantly drawn to him. But guys such as DJ Dale, guys such as Timothy Smith, those are names that Bama's going to need to step up in whatever capacity next year, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can make that next jump. The other area we need to talk about, because Alabama returns so much, is that linebacker area. Henry To'oTo'o comes back, the leading tackler for the Crimson Tide, which is of massive consequence, but Christian Harris hits the NFL. We just had a linebacker in Sean Murphy receive high praise from Dick Butkus, something that's amazing to see. But at the end of the day, that inside linebacker room, though very, very talented, inexperienced. What are you thinking in that regard?
Yeah, that's one of those positions where the last 3 to 4 years has kind of, and you can make an argument, it's kind of been a weak spot there out of all the type of positions. I I don't know. At the weak side linebacker is something I'm really interested of seeing because, Henry T is more, he's more built to be a weak side linebacker, but he's the signal caller. He's your mic. So who do you put there? Do you put Jalen Moody there? Jalen Moody, I think is more of a mic. He's more of a run stopper. He's more of a guy that can close the gap really extremely fast, but he's not the most athletic linebacker. He's just known for his IQ, his strength, and his run stopping ability. But pass coveraging, going sideline to sideline, that's not his strength. So what do you do with that? Do you have Deontay Lawson? I mean, the favorite right now, according to everyone, is Deontay Lawson, who is, showcased a lot of versatility in that spring game. But just like you pointed out, he's a lot of inexperience. Kendrick Blackshire is another one of those dudes that I think needs another year of development because I think he's kind of still raw as a linebacker. Right, Sean Murphy is a freshman, got that praise from Dick Butkus, but he's a freshman, right? We haven't really. When was the last time we had Christian Harris was the last kind of true freshman dude that played at weak side.
It was due to injury,
and yep, that was due to injury. So, we'll see. And we saw how they struggled in 2019, right? Just because they're freshmen and they're athletes doesn't mean that they're automatically going to produce for you on the field. So, it is. We have a lot of talent, a lot of five-star talent, but very similar to a lot of the positions, including the receiving position. It's the inexperience. And that's something that I'm very interested of seeing. So to start off with this thing during spring, I would not be surprised at all if maybe you see Jalen Moody, maybe have the mic. He knows, besides Henry, Jalen knows this defense better than anybody. So maybe you have him take command. You have Henry play him with a more comfortable position at weak side, or maybe you try to have an experiment where to see if Jalen Moody can play at weak side with Henry at Mike. But otherwise, there's gonna be a lot of experimenting, especially with Pete Golding taking over that position. But that is going to be a tough void to fill when it comes to Christian Harris.
Yeah, because you have so much experience, right? Like, at the end of the day, you're talking about a guy that's taken every snap since he was a true freshman at that linebacker position and was able to do a lot, right? Like, whether he got beat or not, everybody gets beat, but he had the athletic ability to be so useful in that defense and be utilized in so many ways that replacing him is going to be interesting. They have so much talent. It's very inexperienced. The name I think I'm very interested in as we add in Chris here is Deontay Lawson. Deontay Lawson flew off the screen last A-Day. He's someone who I'm very interested in. The last area before we hit some Oklahoma talk now that Chris is here is we need to talk about this secondary. Right? Both corners hitting the draft. We retain both safeties, which is huge. I don't know what's going on at the nickel position, whether Malachi Moore is going to get that position back when he gets healthy. But two new faces at the cornerback in Kool-Aid McKinstry and Eli Ricks. How confident are you in the secondary?
Oh, now that Eli Ricks is in our defense, I'm very confident. I said it, on your show a long time ago, but I said if Eli Ricks would have, if you would have started him to practice during that national championship game, he would have been the starter right away. He would have been the best cornerback on the team. He would have, that's a dude that has the ability to take out your number one receiver, and not to mention that if we're just talking about players that can make a play on the ball, that can turn their heads, that have this great technique, that can be physical at the point of attack, that can play elite zone coverage. I mean, Eli Ricks has it all. He's one of the more complete cornerbacks in the nation. As much as I love Josh Jobe, Jalen Armour Davis was pretty impressive during his first year. Yeah, during his cornerback position. You needed those dudes. You needed those playmakers that can make plays on the football. And Eli Ricks is just one of those. He just has those instincts. That it's just one of those players that you just have it or not. And I think that we've seen some flashes from Kool-Aid. He has a lot of talent. I just thought that inexperience, and not to mention that he's a freshman, that was the thing that held him back. But I think another year in this system, especially playing at the number 2 outside cornerback position, is going to be great. I mean, nickelback, I have no idea what you're going to do there because it's Malachi Moore had that freshman year where everyone thought he could be Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then the second year came, and you played him at safety. You played him at strong safety. There was a game where you played him at free. Then you played him, and then you try to put him in at that nickelback position. But then you saw he was struggling. Like, he was really struggling when you played him at nickel. So what do you do there? Do you move him back to safety? Because you did lose. You lost Daniel Wright, but you have DeMarco Helms and you have Jordan Battle. So how do you get Malachi Moore on the field? How do you get Brian Branch on the field? Because those are two players that are, they're good enough to be your best player in the secondary on any other team in this nation. So it's a good problem to have, but at the same time, you really want one of those players to be on the football field, not just sitting on the bench. So it'll be very interesting to see what we can do, how we can experiment of trying to get both those players on there. But this is a secondary this year where I am very highly confident, as long as we don't have the injuries, because on paper it looks great, but if one of our cornerbacks goes down, then I think it's a different story.
True.
Because this cornerback roster is not as deep as what we were kind of expecting it to be. There's a lot of inexperience. I think the loss of both Jalen Armour-Davis and Josh Jobe, I think, can hurt us if we do it. It can definitely hurt us there. So, but overall wise, on paper at least, it looks great. We just have to try to avoid the injury bug.
Yeah, absolutely. SBC, thank you for the $5. Thank you for coming in here and spending some time talking college football. No, we're going to talk about the Big 12 when we start talking about some OU. Eric, as always, my man, excited to talk some Oregon football with you this evening. Chris, before we hop to Oklahoma, we were just talking about the addition of Eli Ricks to this Bama secondary. When you're looking at Alabama going into next year, what are your expectations, not only in that secondary, but for that defense that retains everybody except the starting middle linebacker? And it is going to be a big deal to replace 9 sacks from your interior that you lost from Fedarian Mathis.
Yeah, but I think you guys will be fine. I think secondary-wise, I could say I think you guys will be durable. I don't really foresee any injuries happening. Hopefully they don't. You never can predict injuries, but at the same time, I think the injury bug bit you guys towards the championship game. It wasn't really something that lingered out throughout the year. I'll be interested to see kind of how Will Anderson is used. Obviously, I know that, he can get to the quarterback, he can rush in, all the rest of that stuff. But is he going to add to his game? Is he going to be able to do kind of what some of us wanted to see Benito do this year, but kind of did too much as far as just dropping back, kind of showed coverage skills, different things like that, just showing his versatility. But at the same time, let him do what's going to make him money at the next level, which is rush the quarterback. So I think you guys are going to be fine in the interior and all the rest of that. As far as the cornerback room, I think the cornerback room is going to be fine. I don't necessarily think it was the cornerbacks who hurt you. Obviously, the DB room is just as a whole, but at the same time, I think it was the safeties. Yeah, I think it was the safeties that kind of let you down in that championship game against Georgia. And even at that, let's just be honest about it. It wasn't like he was throwing to wide open guys down the field. There was a couple of busted coverages, but some of those were 50-50 balls that he was throwing up there. So, they were just better on that day. They weren't better during the SEC championship game. So you guys are returning a lot. You guys are going to be kind of on a revenge tour anyways, as far as those two teams, those pesky-ass Aggies, and then obviously Georgia. You're going to kind of want to, circle that game when you see them in the SEC championship. So I expected nothing less than a college football playoff berth. So,
yeah, and even some of those 50-50 balls that were completed, I can't even blame the safeties entirely, man, because you're looking at a situation where they're dealing with somebody that they haven't been dealing with all year. Yeah. And you know how it is. One bad call can affect the whole play. He might have seen something from the cornerback position, called it out to the safety, and just due to inexperience, that was the wrong call, and a half-second rotation made all the difference.
Who is that cornerback that was like, he was hurt going into the game, wasn't hurt anymore, but you guys would not take him off the field?
Jalen Armour-Davis?
Yeah, I felt like he kind of really hurt the game plan, because he just, I don't know, talent-wise, I felt like he belonged on the field, but I just felt like, hey, you're kind of hurting your team, because I felt like
he ended up coming off after the first.
Yeah, they were kind of picking on him a little bit just to see, like, hey, are you really ready for this game, or are you still, do you still need to be on the sideline? So I thought that was something to kind of keep in mind.
I got to be honest, man. As far as surprises in Alabama's defense last year, Jalen Armour-Davis was a real bright spot. And to be fair, Jance, we shouldn't be surprised. This is an individual that the coaching staff has poured over. Anytime that he's been healthy, the coaching staff and all reports are saying this is a guy that has got supreme ability. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy.
He was supposed to be the starter over Patrick Surtain during his freshman year.
that like this is a guy that has had supreme ability. I'm telling you, you want to talk about somebody going into the draft that I hope does well in the combine because I think they will be a steal. Jalen Armour Davis is a name to watch out for. But with that, we need to talk about some Big 12 because we have someone asking about expectations for Baylor. We need to get into that. But also, Chris, we're talking expectations for OU because there's been a lot of talk as to what Oklahoma's season is going to be next year. I feel like we talked about this last time, but since then, someone did a top 25 and left the Sooners out of the top 25 teams going into next year. Way too early, no stock put in that list.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Jance, I'm interested in hearing from you on this. You know, I think you can argue that the Sooners might not be the same team. I don't know how you would argue that they wouldn't be a top 25 team. What's your thought on that?
No, they'll be a top 25 team. I don't see them going, 7-5 or 8-4 during the. I don't see that happening, especially around the Big 12 where Oklahoma State they lose a lot. Baylor's going to have a great defense, but can we trust Baylor to replicate what they did last? I think Baylor's going to be a good team, but can we trust them enough to replicate 11 or 12 wins in the regular season? I'm just not too sure about that. I don't really trust TCU. I don't trust Texas Tech to get that job done. Texas is a question mark. We all know they have the talent, but they have a lot. They're young. They're very, very young. So I think that this is still an Oklahoma football team that still has a lot of talent. It's just going to be different philosophies. It's going to be different from what you see from Lincoln Riley. Brent Venables is going to bring a different game plan to the point where I think it actually could be an advantage for Oklahoma because it makes them unpredictable going into the regular season compared to what you would just get. You knew exactly what you were going to get from Lincoln Riley. You don't know what you're going to get from Brent Venables. So I think that this is an Oklahoma team that will definitely be a top 25 school from the start and to the end of it. I think the real question is that will they be a top 10 school? That's the question. Will they be top 10? Because even though, again, I don't really trust the Big 12, this is a Big 12 conference that is known for just knocking out their competition. We saw a couple years, we saw last year and a couple years ago where Oklahoma was very good. They were good enough to get into the college football playoffs, but they had a couple of games where they just couldn't get it done. They just couldn't really just couldn't get it done. And especially, last year against that Baylor game definitely hit them hard because if they would have won that game, the chances of them making the playoffs we're pretty high. We're pretty high, especially if they would have got that Big 12 championship that we're known to seeing Oklahoma do. But that's kind of the question: is that which Big 12 school can definitely knock Oklahoma off? But no, they'll be fine. They'll be, I think the real question is: will they be a top 10 school? Can they win the Big 12? And which Big 12 school could potentially get in their way from stopping them to get to the playoffs?
Chris, what are you thinking?
I think that the whole top 25 mumbo jumbo that was going on, I think last week or a week and a half ago.
I'm not sure
I thought that was a severe overreaction to the whole fact that, let's just point it out. Caleb Williams left. So everybody's calling him this generational talent, all the rest of that stuff. But hey, let's pull out the fact book, okay? The big book of facts. I think Ty Hayes said that he struggles against top competition as far as those top defenses.
And I stand by that. If I may right here, because I can quote this.
Yeah.
I've always said I'm incredibly high on his upside. I think anybody with eyes is. But what Chris's statement here is going back to when we were debating Bryce versus Caleb in the Heisman. Caleb was great all last year, but when he played defense that actually mixed up coverages, showed you something different pre-snap from post-snap, he struggled. To be expected. He's a freshman.
Yeah.
Only point being is he needs developing, just like every freshman quarterback there's been.
Yeah.
That's all that there was, but I apologize.
So, no, you're good. So I think, and I keep pointing this out. I pointed it out. Shout out to our boys over there, Fanatic Perspective, Nino's Corner, all those guys. But I pointed it out. One of the things that you have to go to, and I think that this is an important thing for all fans of any team to understand. When you're trying to project what a team is going to be like, don't talk about players they lost to the transfer portal or kids they missed on. And as far as a recruiting class, go to their schedule. And when you look at a team like Baylor, you say, okay, there's merit in what Jance is saying simply because they have to go to OU. They have to go to Texas this year. It's not going to be the same type of games because, look, you can't tell me that Baylor is going to be able to say, oh, well, we dropped the game against TCU. Now we got a big game against OU on the road, and they're going to be all up for that and all the rest of that. Yeah, that'd be cool. But at the same time, you're not going home the next week to play in front of your crowd. It's going to give you energy and have that home field advantage. It does matter, no matter what conference you play in. But the thing about it is this right here. Okay, you lost Caleb Williams, you lost Nick Bonito, you lost Perrion Winfrey. You can talk about Perrion Winfrey if you want, saying that, yeah, he was the MVP of the Senior Bowl, all the rest of that. Go watch Iker DeLayman, and he'll tell you exactly what he disagreed with, what he didn't really like about how things kind of went this year as far as the defense under Grinch. We lose Isaiah Thomas, who I'm on record as saying that's honestly probably the biggest loss out of everybody that we lost. And that's saying a lot, especially with Nick Bonito there and Caleb Williams. However, when you look at the defensive line, look at what they're doing. One thing that the Texas boys love to say, we're building from within and then outward, which we've never done before. But you look at this team and you're saying, look, you still got kids like Clayton Smith. You got kids, Billy Bowman. You have talent on this team that is about to get incredible coaching that they probably wouldn't have got. Because that's the thing. You may have lost better. You could argue and say maybe we lost better recruiters, but when you think about the coaching, we may have upgraded.
I don't know that I'd even say.
Look, I know because I know you're gonna go with the Todd Bates, but if you look at Lincoln as a whole, as far as offense,
Lincoln's a great recruiter. I don't push back on that.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, but the kids, you got to think about this as well, Ty. You got to think about this as well. It's incredible what Venables was able to do.
No
and
doubt.
I was talking to my aunt about this, and he pointed out a good point. He said, "Look, let's not forget the class that Lincoln was about to have this year and the next year. So this is something that needs to continue, and I think it will because I like the direction that we're going in. But I'm just saying that I feel like you can make the argument that maybe we lost better recruiters, and time will tell. But at the same time, I think we upgraded coaching-wise. And then when you look at what we're doing as far as building within, because, yes, you lost Mario Williams. I think Mario Williams is a bigger loss than Jaden Hazelwood. But at the end of the day, I don't really think it factors in all that much. We still have a lot of talent in that wide receiver room, and nobody on here can deny that. No. Dylan Gabriel, on paper, on the field, he's the best quarterback in the Big 12 as of today. Because you're not going to tell me that Jerry Bohannon, Spencer Sanders, Max Duggan, you could maybe make an argument for as exciting as he is when we only got a small sample size of Chandler Morris. Okay? You're not going to sit here and tell me that those four quarterbacks or any other quarterback is better than Dylan Gabriel, or even has come close to putting up the type of numbers that he's put up. And so that's the whole thing, is that we have this big focus on defense that everybody is so excited about. Everybody else is saying, you know what, I like what they're doing on defense. And then you couple that with the fact that, hey, it didn't take an incredible quarterback to make it to make it to the Big 12 championship game or win the Big 12 championship game. They rode the backs of their defenses, and they just did what they needed to do to get there to be good enough to win those games. So when I take that into account, I say this right here. I said, why can't that be OU this year? If we're going to rely on defense, we're going to be defense heavy, and we have a more capable quarterback, I don't see why we can't do that. But at the same time, I think the sky's the limit, because I think Dylan Gabriel is going to peak this year. I don't think he's peaked yet. I think we've seen like his potential, what he could do, but I think he's going to have a higher upside with better talent around him.
That's complete. And look, you know how I feel about Dylan Gabriel. I'm very high on Dylan Gabriel. Very high on Dylan Gabriel. I think he's a great addition to the team. I think he fits stylistically with what Levy wants to do. So that's going to be interesting to see. We got some things I want to address. Travis says Trevor Lawrence won a natty, a freshman. And you're not wrong, Travis, but I have a few pushbacks. One, that's the exception, not the rule. Two, that's one of the top 10 highest rated quarterbacks since 2000. Yeah. He was rated as a 1. So we're talking a rare talent. And then even then, when you look statistically, he got better every single year. So you're right. You're certainly not wrong, Travis. Like, if there was ever a checkmate to my statement, you picked the guy. It is Trevor Lawrence. You're certainly not wrong there. I would just argue that I wouldn't ever count on that to happen, because we can count on one hand how many times it has happened. and the effect that he did get better as it went on. But at the end of the day, like, you're certainly not wrong. Trevor Lawrence is a beast for a reason, and he was a beast as a freshman. I mean, look what he did to my Tide, right? Like, it's ingrained in my mind, no doubt about it. Chris, you and I talked about this. I said it, but I'm going to say it again. I had y'all at almost worst losing 3 games this year.
Mhm.
Right. And so, like, I don't see y'all taking some step back, right? I just don't see it. And here's something I will push back on you for. Okay. I agree with you when you said Lincoln was about to sign a really great class in 2022. He was.
Mhm.
I'll push back a bit on 2023. And the reason is 2 years ago, Ohio State leaped out in front of everyone a year and a half early, lapped the field, and ended up finishing with the number 3 recruiting class in the nation. But before then, it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to break the record. So it's always really hard to project that far in the future. But man, I don't, as great as a recruiter as Lincoln was, you're certainly right. I don't know that y'all lost anything in the recruiting side of things. Brent Venables is a phenomenal recruiter. Todd Bates is a phenomenal recruiter. Jeff Lebby's been a really solid recruiter. I mean, I look at what y'all brought in, and I just don't think that y'all lost a step on the recruiting frontier. It'll be different, but I think that the difference is going to be a net positive for the direction you want to go into.
Yeah.
So that right there, I don't know. I'm interested. Jance, what are you thinking on that?
Wait, repeat that again.
So we're talking right now about what OU lost in the recruiting department as compared to what they gained. Chris thinks they may have lost something in that department, but gained in the coaching department. I'm of the mindset that I don't think they lost in the recruiting department. Brent Venables is a great recruiter. Jeff Lebby, young guy, but he showed he can recruit. Then you have Todd Bates, who is a recruiter of the year. I think you've got a really solid recruiting staff there.
Oh no, you have both, dude. I mean, you have better coach. You have a better coaching staff with a track record of better development, and now you also have the recruit. You also have the recruiting aspect. I mean, this year is a perfect. I mean, any other program would have fell apart. The way that Lincoln Riley handled that situation in Oklahoma, and the way that all those coaches and all the drama that was heating up, any other program would have fell apart. But still, Oklahoma, not only were they able to get players. Get young high school players, but they were able to go to the transfer portal and get some really, really good talent, some really, really good plug and play players that I think can make an immediate impact for your team. So it's not just for the long term, it's for the short term as well. They're not going anywhere. So this is an outstanding job by Brent Venables assembling the coaching staff that he's had. And I think that I keep saying this is preparation for the SEC. And so far, the way that Brent Venables is building this team, they're building for the SEC. If they don't, let's say Oklahoma doesn't win the Big 12 this year, it'll be disappointing for the short term for Oklahoma fans. But in the long term, Sooner fans will know that, okay, you know what? How do we look this year compared to what we did last year? Do we look more physical? Do we look more physical in the trenches? Do we look better in certain other particular areas besides the usual, skill position players that we normally kind of focus on? I think that is something that if I'm a Sooner fan, I'm looking for more than just to say what my record is of just going, because even if I go 12-1, if I'm not getting better in those positions where you already know the SEC, it's all about trench warfare. If I'm not getting better in those particular positions, then that's something to be caused, and that's something to be worried about. Because I don't just want to go to the SEC and just win around 9 and 10 games a year. I want to compete for national championships. So I think overall, from what we're seeing so far from Brent Venables, at least from a recruiting aspect, and knowing the track record of what these coaches, guys like Todd Bates, that this coaching staff can have, Oklahoma's on the right path.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
I mean, I think just listening to now. Don't get me wrong. I love to play. I love to clown. I love to have fun and everything. But I can differentiate the real perspectives from just the clown perspectives, because you hear you hear the Texas fans, they're always coming in here with this, well, you guys are $1 billion in debt. You have this right here. You're not going to be able to recruit because of NIL. You don't have NIL money. You don't have this and that. You hear all that stuff, but then, you hear some reasonable stuff in there where like, hey, Excuse me. Let me jump back over here to the unreasonable stuff. You hear the, oh well, Brent Venables has never coached a team on his own. He's got to worry about the CEO aspect, and I'm like, I'm just pointing them out. As a Texas fan, I mean, you could pretty much say the same thing about Sark because it wasn't like he had the greatest run as a head coach at Washington and USC. Out of those years that he was a head coach, he only had 9 games. He only had one season where he won 9 games. And before you go, because I don't want to hear anything about, well, he was still a head. That doesn't matter, especially if you're not winning, if you're not coming from that pedigree. He had to go to Saban to learn how to win, how to actually build a program and do that. Because obviously Pete Carroll wasn't cutting it for him when he was coming from that tree. But you look at the reasonable takes and you say, hey, okay, I get what you're saying. Oh, they'll go 9-3, they'll go this and that. But there's still not too much explanation out there as to why, except for you guys just lost your quarterback, your star quarterback. You just lost Benito, and nobody talks about Hurrion. Nobody talks about Isaiah Thomas, and you're looking and you're saying like, hey, man, we're going to be fine. We have talent. I think everybody on this panel right now can say, hey, you guys have recruited well. And it's not like Raleigh depleted. I just took the team and had the team just look totally desolate. No, he took a couple of players. He took our quarterback. Okay. He took a wide receiver. Other than that, who else is he taking? So you look at over the years of the stuff that they have built, and it's just funny to hear people say that we're going to take a step back simply because we have a guy who's never been a coach. Granted, he has 26 years of winning experience and hella credentials as far as all the kids he's gotten to the league, all the Buckets Award winners and all the rest of that stuff that he's been able to produce. He can spot talent. He can coach talent. But it's just funny to hear people flip that switch and say, I can see you guys maybe losing 3 or 4 games, maybe 5 games. Granted, when Raleigh was here, they respected this team and they said, oh, those kids are talented that you got coming up. You guys got some dudes over there. So I just think it's funny that we just flipped the switch automatically because we lost the coach, lost our quarterback, and that's pretty much it.
See, I think one area I agree with you, but also disagree. I agree with you in the sense that Brent Venables not having coaching experience. I don't think that that's going to be the reason. Head coaching experience. Let me clarify. Ample coaching. Yeah. I don't think that's going to be the reason OU takes some massive step back because I don't expect OU to take some massive step back. But at the same point, if someone's saying, oh, well, that's a legitimate thing for me, I'm not going to say that that's not a real point. It is. Do I think that he'll be able to do it? Sure. But if you're putting to me like, oh, well, he just doesn't have that tangible head coaching experience, fair enough. They'll be learning in it. I just happen to think he's an individual who's incredibly well equipped for the learning aspects.
Yeah.
So that's something. Now, here's something. Kyle, I want you to let me know down in the comments who you think is the best quarterback in the Big 12, because he kind of had some pushback to your Dylan Gabriel comment about being the best quarterback in the Big 12. And then some people have asked about the Heisman, so we're going to talk about some Heisman after that. So he says that left-handed quarterbacks have a very low ceiling historically. I don't know. I just think that there haven't been that many of them, but as it pertains to like left-handed quarterbacks versus right-handed quarterbacks, I think we have such a distorted sample size. It's hard to say. But what's your response to this?
My response is, first off, the first sentence is just, I'm not even going to go there with left-handed quarterbacks. We could talk about Mike Vick all day. He's one of the, he revolutionized the game, left-handed quarterback. I think that's a big laugh itself. But
I'd be interested in seeing data on it.
Yeah, the reason why I say that he's the best quarterback in the Big 12, the numbers, all the production, everything that he's coming in, you could talk about the injury, all the rest of that stuff. But literally, let's look at the top teams in the Big 12 right now. We talk about Baylor, we talk about Oklahoma State, we talk about OU, we talk about Texas. For some reason, we're putting them in there. Let's just look at the Big 12 as a whole. You got Max Duggan, Chandler Morris. We have no idea who's going to start out of that. Okay, it should be Chandler Morris, but let's just put those two in there. Then you got the quarterback from Iowa State that backed up Purdy this year. Will he start? I have no idea. You never know with Matt Campbell. He come left. We have no idea who the quarterback down there in Texas Tech is going to be. It should be the backup that they had that was playing. He's pretty electric, but at the same time, I think he was a freshman this year, so you're hoping that he can do better. And I'm sure that Cumbie is going to be able to make some things happen. But at the same time, again, it's Texas Tech, right? They should be able to produce a quarterback. They should be able to do everything. I don't know what type of system they're going to run. Then let's go to West Virginia. I don't know if Dougie is coming back, but him and the other kid that was, killing us with that damn quarterback, basically the whole RPO look.
Yeah, the two quarterback system they have.
Yeah, I mean, it was just basically, I don't really, that's a question mark. We already know Mullet Boy. I said it on their show on Fanatic Perspective. I'll say it here. I'll coin the phrase. His nickname, you know how they say all gas, no brakes? Well, for Mullet Boy, for Quinn Ewers, his nickname is all hype, no tape, because we have no tape on him yet. Okay, so we don't really know. It's a question mark. Then let's go back to Baylor. Jerry Bohannon, he scares nobody. He's just a durable quarterback. He's a game manager, and he does what he needs to do, and he rides the defense. And then Spencer freaking Sanders.
Yeah, Spencer Sanders is all over the place.
I don't really know. I'm not even going to destroy him today, but Spencer Sanders, enough said. So to sit here and say that a quarterback that's coming from, let's say, a respectable conference, a team that we all have, a common team with a secondary that we all respected last year in Cincinnati. He's put up numbers against them. He's done well. You can go and watch the highlights. You can go and watch the film. Did they win? No. But at the same time, look at his individual performance, and you're saying, okay, I can respect that because that's somebody that we all respected. And if you're saying that you don't respect the Cincinnati secondary, then you're a casual. You don't watch college football in my book. So when I put all of that together with the names that I listed in the Big 12, I'm sorry, but I'm not. It's not any OU bias. It's just me simply saying Dylan Gabriel's the best quarterback in the Big 12. I'm taking him over any of those kids all day and every day. You're not going to sit here and tell me that the top two teams that finished in the Big 12 last year in Oklahoma State with Spencer Sanders and then Baylor with Jerry Bohannon have a better quarterback that can actually fling the ball and do stuff. Go watch tape on the kid. Go actually break down the Levy offense, and I'm telling you, he's going to be extremely successful in the Big 12 from day one.
So, look, I don't disagree. As far as starting out right now, I think he's got to be because of the depth of ability he offers. Now, whether he'll end up that way remains to be seen. I don't know. I have no idea. But I wouldn't be mad at all if I was going into the next season with a quarterback that, as Travis pointed out up here, right? I had this pen for a reason. And thank you for pointing this out, Travis. I talk about this a lot, but it's very pertinent to the conversation at hand. He knows Levy's offense. He has the experience with Levy. That experience is going to be huge. Think of the time it cuts down. Travis, you asked earlier, if I'm not mistaken, if I am mistaken, very sorry, but let me know in the comments if I get this right. You asked earlier if OU and Levy had a national championship caliber offense. I can't give you a certain definite yes now because we just don't know yet. What I can say is the trees Levy comes from are very intriguing. They had high-powered offenses at Ole Miss. His offense at UCF, very high-powered as well, able to put up points, able to affect the defense in all the best ways. But at the same time, when you're talking about the tree he comes from, you're talking Lane Kiffin, Art Briles. That raises eyebrows, man. Like, that's something that, in my opinion, raises eyebrows. I'm very interested to see. I think that he is going to hit the ground running. I think from a stylistic approach, the players you have on roster match what he wants to do to a T. I really think that if you're talking about from a stylistic approach, I think it's a perfect fit for where you are right now and sliding something in there. So I think from that perspective, it's awesome.
I mean, and that just adds on to the conversation. So I don't think it's necessarily a left-handed quarterback or this and that. And as much as I would love to take Diggs, I'm not going to take Diggs. I'm just going to say this right here is that I just don't have faith with the product that I seen. We played every team last year in the Big 12, and I got to see it was an easy formula. We talked about it all the time with the key word being blueprint, Ty, how every game seemed like the same thing against OU. Inside run, pop them over the middle if you can, inside run, let's do everything is 4 down territory past the 40. It was simple. So with those quarterbacks, and then you would watch them in other games and you would say, how the hell did we lose to them? This dude threw 4 picks in one game. How the hell did we lose to him? He rushed for 80 yards on us last week, and this week here against freaking Texas Tech, he's only got 10 yards, and he's been a non-factor. Dougie or Deggy, however you say his last name, he's played the majority of the game. How is this happening to us? You know what I'm saying? So able to see that small sample size from last year outside of Chandler Morris, there's not a quarterback that I would say that I'm more excited about seeing play other than Dylan Gabriel. So
I think that's fair. I think that's certainly fair. One thing we've had asked, I'm going to scroll back up and find it, but I do remember the general comment. It was about the Heisman, right? Way too early Heisman predictions. We'll probably all be wrong, but that's the fun in it, right? So someone asked, I'm not finding the comment, but off the top of my head, someone had asked if we thought that Caleb Williams was going to be the front runner for the Heisman Trophy going into this year. And look, I'm going to come out like no, I'm not. Bryce Young. Bryce Young is going to go into the year as the odds-on Heisman favorite. He just won the Heisman. He's only going to get better. He's got more familiarity now with the offensive coordinator, returns a good amount of talent. Wide receivers need to be adjusted. But as of right now, if you're asking me who I'd have as my favorite, it's got to be Bryce Young. Jance, what about you?
I mean, I have no problem with it. I think, again, he just won the Heisman Trophy. Now, do I think he'll win the Heisman Trophy? Yeah, probably not, because he has to have a better season than his Heisman Trophy campaign, and normally that just doesn't really happen. We haven't had a back-to-back Heisman Trophy winner since Archie Griffin did it. Will Anderson is probably another dude that maybe can get in there, especially if he can replicate the season that he did, because that any other season and he would have been in New York, but because of what Aiden Hutchinson did, and I would probably say that I think Will Anderson got screwed from going there. But if Will Anderson has again, if he has another season where he replicates what he did with the 16 sacks, or at least gets somewhere close to it, he has to be in consideration for the number. But there's always the thing about the Heisman is that we always have people from returning from the previous season, and they're always on the list, generally so. But every single year for the Heisman Trophy ballot, there's always players that we don't know. They just come out of nowhere, and they'll have just this magical season, and they're all of a sudden in the ballot. So obviously we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But I think Bryce Young, Will Anderson, I mean, Caleb Williams, I'll have in there only because I think that based off what we saw from him last year and just how dynamic of a player he was, he'll definitely be on the list. But I think Will Anderson and Bryce Young should be the two guys that should be the front runners for the Heisman.
What's funny is that a lot of people have I've seen it. I've seen it. People have USC going 11-1 next year.
No.
Winning more than 10 games. A lot of people have them winning at least 10 plus games next year.
Interesting.
I like literally just reading up on all, because I'm curious. I want to see what USC is talking about. I want to see what is their excitement around the program, huh?
Look, I know there's a lot of OU fans in here, and I do think USC is going to be better. Right? Like, there's no doubt in my mind that USC will be better. Here's the thing. As much as I love to laugh about all the Tebow jokes and all the rest of that, it's hilarious. But at the same time, I can't deny the fact that we did lose a really, really good coach, an outstanding young coach that we thought was going to be here 20 plus years, because that's the norm around OU. You don't really see a lot of hiring and firing around this program as far as the football team. But at the same time, with USC, I think they'll be better, but I still think they may be a year away. I think realistically, you're looking at them and saying maybe the 23 year is probably going to be better for you guys, because you guys are going to get a bunch of recruits, especially a lot of those Cali kids, Malachi Nelson and his bunch or whatnot. But at the same time, I think they're rightfully so. I mean, Mario Williams, Raleek Brown, some of the other guys that they had last year who were going to excel in his system and whatnot. And I mean, say what you want to say about the Big 12, but the Pac-12, come on. I mean, let's just be honest. But at the same time, I think that Lincoln is going to have to show me, one, that he's ready to go again. I mean, he's ready to go against Baylor 1.0, Utah. He's got to show me that
Lanning and his group of guys, he's going to be able to get in there and go against defensive minds like that. Obviously, he was able to pass the whole Gary Patterson, check. He was able to beat Dave Aranda before, but at the same time, you're looking at teams like that and you're saying it's the Baylors, it's the K-States of the world. And when you look at the Pac-12 as a whole, there are a bunch of teams who kind of remind you of that. The Stanfords, okay? Stanfords will do that. Take a trip to Colorado. Colorado damn near beat Texas A&M last year, and they look decent at different points during the season. I mean, you got to take it as a whole, and you look at Lincoln Riley's track record. It's not the big games that you worry about. It's those games that you're like, oh, yeah, we should win that game by 40. We should win that game by at least 20 points. We're favored. We're minus 22 at Tech, but we go down there and only win by 3 points. You know what I'm saying?
No,
so I mean, that's a part of his whole coaching experience, and I think that's something to factor in at the Pac-12.
I was pinging between Travis and Noeen's comments because I agree 100% with both of you guys. I couldn't agree more. 8-4, 9-3. That's about where I have USC. Do I think that as hard as it is to hear, do I think that USC made a good hire? Yeah, I think that it's a substantial upgrade from Clay Helton and company.
Yeah.
If you're arguing that Clay Helton and company is better, that's an entirely different conversation, right? One that we can have, but it's not going to be a good one. They upgraded from there, but even then, I just look at it, and someone asked else earlier, they said, who do you think is in a better position for success next year, OU or USC? Look, as much belief and as much as I would like USC to get back, because I think it's good for college football, and many of you in the chat at this point realize I'm an Alabama fan, but I love college football so much. USC, Texas, them coming back is good for college football. So I root, right? Like I want teams to be good. I want to see other teams be good. I want my Tide to win it all, obviously, but look, I want teams to be good. I think it's good for the players. I think it's good for the fans. I digress. OU's in a better position for next year. And it's not, to me, a statement to say that because you look at the talent on roster, one of them came from a season that was a game or two away from a Big 12 championship berth. OU's in a better position right now, no doubt about it, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that USC could also be on a come-up, right? I do. I think it is absolutely like that. Travis, you said something earlier, man, about Caleb. That's real. As a USC or as an OU fan, still thinking he can win the Heisman. I don't disagree with you at all, man. The kid has unreal talent. I am happy he went to USC, though, because I do think that he needs somebody to continue developing him so he gets to that point. But at the end of the day, it is going to be interesting to see. Jance, what about you?
Yeah, I think the same. I think it'll be I agree. I agree with you, man.
Yeah, look, USC is going to be interesting, but when we're talking about who's in a better position right now, OU. OU's in a better position right now.
I think, let me go back to that point right there. I don't necessarily say that it's good for college football that all those teams are good, not because I want to be selfish and say, oh, yeah, just Bama. It should be the same four in the college football playoff every year. No, granted, we know it's going to expand, right? But we talk about all the change that is, accompanied by the NIL deals and all the rest of that stuff, and we don't understand like just the paradigm shift that we've all entered into with this era here. I don't think it's a good thing, but then again, it's not. It doesn't have to be a good thing. It doesn't have to be like that simply because we're not as regionalized as we were back in those days. Does that make sense? As far as Notre Dame ruled the Midwest. That was the school to go to in the Midwest. And USC was the school that everybody wanted to play for. It may still be like that around around LSU because everybody in Louisiana, that's the school. But when you look at other places, now you're saying that, hey, a lot of other schools have a lot of mass appeal. A lot of schools can do things. Because at the end of the day, it's just think about it like the NIL deals. Texas and Texas A&M going to have all that money and everything, but you still got to think about the repercussions of that. You sign an Evan Stewart, and Evan Stewart goes there, and he doesn't have the year or 2 years that he thinks he's going to have, and he jumps ship. And then what happens? Recruits from Texas. yeah, recruits from those Texas high schools looked up to him and all the rest of that, and one wrong word about Texas A&M, and then that shuts off maybe a pipeline that they thought they had at a couple of high schools around the area that he came from. You get what I'm saying? So when you look at the whole thing, you just say we're not as regionalized as we were anymore. So I don't think it's necessarily, oh, we have to look at it as it's a great thing for all these teams to be good. Whenever, like, hey, you just need to do your job and make sure that you're good. But some of these schools will just put themselves in such a hole because, hell, think about Michigan. Michigan is the most irrelevant 9 to 10 win team each year.
Well, they're the most, yeah, and they're a blue blood.
Yeah.
Because historically, like, you cannot take away what Michigan has done historically. Nobody can.
No, you can't take away historically, but when you just think about like the here and now, which is what recency bias in the 2020s, that's what prevails. But you're looking and you're just saying like, hey, look at Nebraska. Everybody, people say, oh, it's good for USC to be good and Texas to be good. What about Nebraska? When everybody loves to go and beat up on them and say, oh, well, you did that to yourself because you took yourself away from the Texas market and all those markets. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I don't necessarily know if it has to be a good thing for everybody to be good.
I would say that. Oh, go ahead.
No. I want to hear what you said. We were about to say about Florida.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, look at Florida and Florida State. I mean, again, you can make an argument. Well, Florida State is definitely a blue blood program, and look at how they've been. I mean, you're talking about a school that you can make an argument was the mecca at one point of college football, where they just had such a dominant success for over 3 decades, and now we're to a point now where we can make, we're arguing if, they can win around 6 or 7 games, can they even reach that point and make that work? They're not even the best school in their state. They're not even close to being the best school in their own state, which is shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And then obviously Florida is trying to get back to that point where they used to be with the Urban Meyer days, what they were in 1996 with Steve Spurrier. And even when they had a little bit of success compared to those late 80s and early 90s days, they're trying to get back to those days. Miami is in the same rebuilding process as a blue blood program. Now, again, it'll be great for ratings. It'll be great for nostalgia, especially when it comes to a lot of the guys that are part of that older generation, because they were used to seeing Miami dominate back during those early U days. They were used to seeing what Nebraska did when they had that three national championship period back in those mid to late 90s. They were used to seeing what Florida State was able to do with Bobby Bowden. What's funny? I actually had a pretty argument with one of my buddies, and he was like, "It would be great to see Boston College get back." I'm like, "What do you mean Boston College?" I'm like, "Yeah, what they had with Matt Ryan, that was special, man. What they was able to do with Florida State." So I think that for the most part, for a nostalgic aspect, it'll be great to see these blue blood programs back. But it doesn't automatically. I don't think it's automatically going to assume. We're automatically just going to assume here that it'll be just entirely great for the sport because of like Chris mentioned, the entire NIL aspect. I think that again, it kind of takes the spotlight away from some of the other kind of small college football programs that really don't have that resume of being a blue blood, but it kind of stops them from being able to come up. I don't, you know what I mean about that. So yeah, I think for the most part, we'll see. We're going to have to see what happens there, especially with USC. But yeah, just be interesting to watch.
Well, boys, get ready for the contrarian to roll on through. Here's why I think this is good for college football. Because right now, the better your teams are, the more parity you have, the more eyes on college football, and the more sustained, serious intrigue around college football. So inevitably, getting these big brands back, such as Miami, USC, it will open up the funnel. Because right now, you're looking at a funnel, and you're having all this talent inevitably being funneled through a few teams, right? We can talk about the regionality of college football and how that's changed. You're 100% right, Chris. No doubt about that. That's completely taken everything into a whole different thing. But even then, you're looking at a place such as Florida. To Jance's point, University of Florida has been decent. They've been pretty good, right? But they've been on a downturn ever since Urban left. Florida State's been on a downturn. Miami's been on a downturn. When you look at the effects in the state of Florida, it is detrimental. And it's no wonder why they can't get back on track, because they can't recruit their own state at this point. Kids have no willingness to go to Florida when they know they can go to Alabama, when they know they can go to LSU, other institutions. Now OU is in Florida doing great work, right? So the ability for these institutions such as USC, such as Florida, to be able to come back and show that they have a tangible ability to have success, FSU as well, thank you, Sean, that right there galvanizes the local principalities and allows these recruits to be able to be excited to go to these institutions in their home state. And it's not even just the local recruits. You're expanding markets in college football, which is only going to make more money for the sport and inevitably in an NIL age, open up funding opportunity for more NIL opportunities for the athlete. So that's why I say
I get that, and that's a great overall like perspective to have. And I honestly, look, I'm not saying that you're right, but I'm just saying it's not the responsibility of the rest of college football for you to be good, especially when you say, because the thing is that you got to hold these institutions accountable. Why are you sitting there, as people like to, Stephen would like to say, oh, well, Lincoln Riley, you guys lost your girlfriend and everything and stuff. Why is USC flirting with somebody else and just keeping their relationship going with somebody that they don't even want to be their coach? They should have been fired probably 2 or 3 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Then you look at Miami and you look at the names that have rolled through Miami. You're saying it's been failed project after failed project after failed project. It's been about, they've been relevant at different times, but it's been about, I would say, a good 10 to maybe 13 years of freaking mediocre football, mediocre decisions being made around the institution. Then I go back to a team like Nebraska and I say, look, it's not everybody else's responsibility, because yeah, you would like for those teams to be good and get back to their glory days, but at the same time, you gotta be able to have the right people there making the right decisions. That's the reason why. And Alabama, OU, the Ohio States, all the rest of that, because they're making good hires and they're not only taking their time, but they're not trying to hire the splash guy. They're not trying to do this or do that and just trying to kind of hold over. Because the thing is, I think we can all agree, Clay Helton was honestly a placeholder. Yes, he did get an extension a couple of times, but he was just a placeholder. His recruiting had fluctuated, going down, and then it went up, and then it went right back down. But he was always a placeholder for the next person to have that job. So my whole thing is that, hey, I hope your team gets good, but at the same time, I'm not going to hold my breath simply because I've seen you guys have just experienced mediocrity. I've just seen it firsthand. So it's hard for me to see. Yeah, FSU too. It's hard for me to sit there and say, yeah, these teams should. You missed on hires. And that's what happens when you consistently miss on the hires, because you got to think about it. You could put Ed O out there as the head coach for them. And yeah, they won a national championship with Ed O. But we all know Ed O is a glorified assistant coach. Okay? And that's not to take away from that year that he had. He did what he needed to do, but he had great football minds around him, and he was able to hold it together, get everybody. Nobody really got injured. Nothing really bad happened. The team was all together. They were brothers. They did their thing. I get that. But at the same time, we always look at LSU and say they're just one coach away, honestly, from doing something, because they're one quarterback away from doing something. Okay. But you look at a Miami, you look at some of these other guys. When's the last time they've had an established culture? It's just been in disarray. And then USC, also what you got to think about is this right here. Before NIL deals, what were there? Infractions. So, I mean, some of the stuff that we're sitting here trying to give them a pat on the back and, oh, you should be good and everything and stuff, they did it to themselves. So I just really have no sympathy for that, honestly.
Well, I don't think the two ideologies are mutually exclusive. You know what I like? I don't think it's anybody's responsibility to help these teams get good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it is good for college football if they are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, hell, I want Texas Tech to go back to the air raid. I want to see Mike Leach go back to Texas Tech, but I know that marriage is never going to happen again.
True. But I think this does get us into a conversation that I'm excited to have, and it's what we're going to end on, right? And that is NIL. And I'm glad we have an attorney with us this evening, because I have a basic solution, or step one, in fixing NIL.
Okay.
Here it is, right? Right now, something that makes absolutely no sense to me is you have this grand plan that is NIL that's been rolled out by the NCAA. Okay. The problem is you have states not on the same page. Right now, as we're sitting here, Alabama's repealing laws so that their NIL laws can look more similar to Texas so that they have the same opportunity to have the ability to offer in the same structure. The problem with that is right now we have different states able to do different things based on the laws their legislatures have passed. That can't work, right? Like, and I get it. Even in the Constitution, states can give you more rights, they just can't give you less. I understand that. But in that same spirit, we should have a baseline understanding of what NIL is across the board.
Yeah.
Because if not, how does this make sense? What do you think about that?
I mean, I definitely agree. I think there needs to be some kind of uniform standard, and I'm not within reason. I don't now. Hey, I want Texas to get all the best players. I want to beat the hell out of them and then laugh at them and say, like, hey, okay, take Mullet Boy and go back to the trash can where you found him. But at the same time, I will say this right here. I don't want to detract away from what some of the states are doing, though. I want it to be something that's uniform. Maybe there's some stipulations put on it, but I don't want to sit there and say, you guys need to pay a luxury tax. You guys Texas A&M, you can't pay these kids. Or you can only pay these kids upward of this. I don't want to see any disadvantages in that, right? But I do think there needs to be some type of uniform system as far as this is what happens. The money is held or whatever the case may be. There needs to be something uniform throughout. That way, this doesn't become a total just recruiting tool, which it basically is. Yeah.
Gents, your thoughts on NIL?
I mean, it's definitely kind of a tough subject, especially because again we're in the early portions of NIL. I think again something's going to have to get worked out. There's going to have to be some type of sort of solution because just like Chris said, it is used right now as a recruiting tool for both arguably the transfer portal and for just the regular recruiting aspect when it comes to getting. I mean, it's to a point. There's a story that I read up with UB. The school that I went to, for my university that I went to, that we're approaching ninth graders. We're approaching eighth graders and ninth graders early for NIL opportunities. Like that's just now again, Buffalo. Yeah, it's not the biggest recruiting spot in the nation. We barely have any football camps here. We have to go out of state. We have to go all the way to Ohio in order for us to go to a football camp. But still, there's some talent here where we're approaching eighth graders, youth football camps, ninth graders for NIL opportunities just for them to go to UB. Like that, come on, bro. I mean, it's just it's something that we cannot let this get out of hand. It's something that as ridiculous as I just said, as ridiculous as that sounds, that's realistic. That's something that can potentially happen because again, ninth graders, 10th graders, right, eighth graders, they get recruited very early by these major institutions, and I would not be surprised at all if we hear a story like that coming out of play. Would not do it. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, are you done?
Yeah, I'm going. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, just to piggyback off of what you were saying, here's something, Ty, that you could possibly do, okay? So bear with me. Let me get through this real quick, okay? I'll try to speed through it. So the Clemson model of recruiting, okay, that's coming to OU now, where that offer, they talked about, I was listening to Parker Thune and all them, some experts talk about it, Brandon Drum, and they were talking about how when a kid comes to OU now, that offer is really exclusive to them. It's an exclusive offer. It's not something where in the last regime you had maybe 4 or 5 official commits. You may have had 20 or 30 kids coming in each weekend for game weeks, either on unofficials or official visits or so. No, there's going to be one big summer event, one big fall event. You're going to kind of have that chance right there, and every kid there is going to be an official visit. You're going to have all of that, but it's going to be something exclusive, right? So the reason why I bring up that is because of the key word, making this exclusive to those schools, as far as going down and saying like, hey, okay, you can only talk to this kid about NIL deals second part of junior year going into all of senior year, right? Basically, to where your school has some type of exclusive package or whatnot, which they all do, right? Because hell, you see, oh boy, Caleb Williams got the Beats by Dre deal. All the rest of that stuff, he's in Cali, so it all makes sense, right? But you look at OU, you look at teams like that, and you're just saying, okay, well, what's exclusive to you, right? So I think something like that, as far as just making it something that is an exclusive package that you can offer. A, B, C, D, F, and G, maybe not the whole alphabet, but just a list of things that you can be able to put on that list to exclusively offer that kid, as far as just showing him or her, like, hey, this is what you could potentially earn with us. But at the same time, these are the things that we would already have set in motion for you to be a part of. You know what I'm saying? Because think about it. Here's a prime example. Texas. Texas is already able to go out there and tell offensive linemen, hey, if you want to come here, Kelvin Banks, if you want to come here, great. We're already got you a $50,000 contract signed up with this local charity that you just need to be
on
a part
top of the $100,000 every other prospect gets.
Exactly. So you're just saying that, like, hey, we already have something set in motion. These are the set things that we already have. You're a top player. They definitely want to have freshmen and guys like yourself. If you play more or whatever, it's all incentivized, this and that. So you can have that. But I feel like, hey, if you just have an exclusive package that you're offering these kids that are second, or I say in the spring semester of their junior year throughout their senior year, then you're able to kind of minimize some of this, because then you're saying, okay, well, I don't know what you're going to be able to earn. You could potentially earn this. This is what we say for players of your caliber. But at the same time, this is a package, exclusive package that we have made that fits all of our players that we talk to. Get what I'm saying? In this class, in this position, whatever the case may be, because then they're coming in and the kids already have an expectation of what they're going to get, opposed to, okay, well, maybe I should go to Michigan and not OU. I know I can go to Bama, but OU and Michigan are offering me something better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Travis, thank you for tuning in tonight, man. Just the input you guys give, that helps this conversation flow, and it really adds another layer. So I really can't thank you enough. And I really can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming in and spending the evening with us talking college football. Here's what I'll say, and I kind of want to talk about that and answer Eric's question when he asked, is it really that different than before, or is it just that we're seeing it? Eric, in my opinion, the answer is both. And your other comment asked if this will sort itself out or if we're being alarmist. I don't think we're being alarmist, because I don't think any of us here are calling for the end of NIL, right? Like, I think we all think that NIL is a necessary thing. It should have happened a while ago. I just think we think it can be done better. And I think one of the things, at the very least, we need to do is have uniform regulation between all the states, so that at least there's an equal opportunity to do analogous things, as opposed to Rhode Island not being able to do what Virginia is being able to do, right? Like, just random states. No, that way we can take all feeling out of this, just random states. That's I think the baseline we need to do. But when I say I think it's both, in reference to your question, is it different, or is it just that we're finally seeing it? The fact that we can finally see it and it can be done in the open inevitably makes it different because of the way we're able to move now, right? That right there, that point, inevitably changes how this is happening, because what was before hush hush is now completely on the forefront. So now there's a whole nother layer on the back burner behind this that we didn't used to get to see. Intriguing, but it is something to watch. I just happen to think that if we want to come out and have an easy fix for this, the NCAA needs to lobby for uniform state legislature as it pertains to NIL laws. I think that that's just the most common sense thing to do.
I mean, not only that, and I know that there are some things set up, but these kids need to have some type of program within. There needs to be some type of, maybe not even hiring somebody for that. I mean, you can afford it, but these kids need to have some type of support system or whatnot that tells them, like, hey, you need to save your money, all the rest of that. Absolutely. I mean, you don't have to go get an Edward Jones freaking financial advisor. Yeah, you need to be able to plan that. I mean, it's kind of just like take the G League model. Because for those kids who play for Ignite, that's what they have. not only are they they're playing, they're getting acclimated to the NBA environment, but they're also taking classes about financial literacy and different things like that, so they'll know how to save their money, invest their money, and be able to maintain their accustomed style of living. And that's something that needs to happen as well, because you can put all that money in front of a kid, he blows his ACL, and then he's just kind of up in the air. Because at the end of the day, let's not all forget that one of the things about college coaches and all the rest of that is this right here. Well, you recruit over those kids, right? So you don't want to get those kids. You don't want to see those kids get hurt, and then boom, they lose all their money, right then and there, trying to, do all the rest of that. But there definitely needs to be some type of system put in place that's more uniform than what we have now. I mean, this is I'll put it in the legal sense. So we talk about this all the time, where when you talk about contract law and all the rest of that, because of how rapidly advanced technology is becoming, which has always been really, advanced, but at the same time, with all the stuff coming, there's really they're going to have to basically revisit that and write new laws, like a whole new restatement on all of that. And it's pretty much the same thing with this right here with college football, is that they're going to have to basically throw out everything that they had in there, maybe keep a couple of things, but they're going to basically have to revise this whole thing. This can't be just, we need to add this in there. No, you're going to have to basically go from ground zero and build all the way up to actually build some type of infrastructure. And maybe you, Jance, maybe you, Ty, or maybe somebody in the chat would disagree with this, but I don't think the NCAA is going to be able to do that.
I have no faith in the NCAA.
Nah, it's just poor leadership. It's just poor leadership, man. And these programs, they have way too much power. So, yeah.
I'm going to leave it with this right here, all right? Because this is something NCAA isn't going to invest the money to defend it legally. They've given – no, look, frightening, you're right. This is why I think that the NCAA has no faith from me. Cinnamon says we don't want uniform control, but at the same time, you do for something like this, as it pertains to the ability to be able to offer, because if not, then parity goes out the window, right? And I'm not saying that even then there'll be parity, but college football, like life, is meritocracy. And in life, unfortunately, things aren't equal, but it's about the opportunity to be able to pursue something more equal. Uniform legislation across the board allows that in the sense of NIL. You might not have the same dollars that Texas has, that Notre Dame has, but you have the same opportunity to be able to utilize your NIL in the same fashion they do. That's what we mean when we say uniform.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, that's what we mean when we say uniform. Now, here's what I'm going to end this on. Because to your point, Chris and Jance, I want to hear your response to this as well. Whenever Kavanaugh put the NCAA in his sights last summer when the Supreme Court was hearing their case, this was a case about something very microscopic, and Kavanaugh essentially took the doors off and painted the whole picture and showed the crowd. And that picture essentially said, your business model wouldn't work for any other industry in the nation. Why does it work for you? You have a business model made on not paying the people who are basically garnering you all the money. This business model would fail and is unconstitutional everywhere else. Why are you the exception? Chris can tell you. That's the Supreme Court begging people to start opening up cases against the NCAA so it can go up the chain of command to the Supreme Court. They're interested. They are, at the very least, interested. That's all I'm going to say. I'll let y'all two take it from here.
Go ahead, Jance.
Yeah, it's like when you hear that saying, it really kind of really opens up the eyes, because then you have to go when you actually kind of do the research and you look at a lot of the other major sports. Like when I heard that, I looked at all the major sports institutions, because the first sport that came up to mind was the soccer youth academies. Because for what they do over there, it's not like how it is for college football or for the the football landscape over here, where we have a youth program, then they go to high school, then they get recruited, go to college, and they go to the NFL. No, you have to go to a youth academy, and you can get developed there for around a decade or even more so. But even then, it's like when you can get called up as early as 14 years old to play for a major sports program, but you get paid. like as 14, 13, 15, 16-year-olds, you get paid, and you get paid a lot of money just to go to a youth academy. And just to get developed, and they have a bunch of financial aspects where they teach these young kids how to invest, how to save up your money, how to do so they have all these stipulations and things in mind. And now, of course, it took time. It took them over a decade for them to finally get that out. But that's just from a world aspect. This is the only major sports I guess corporation that it wasn't in place. It was just, you were just playing football damn near for free. Right? As a college, as a person that, again, I play D3 football, it's not easy, right? You have to go through classes. You have to, it's like working a 10-hour job. It's like working a 10-hour job, and then you have to restart that process over and over and over again. And you're basically doing that for free. So it's like when you hear that statement, and then you look at where we are right now for NIL, that's why it's tough. It's tough. It might be more than a decade before we actually have something in place that can be something that where both parties can be satisfied, because you don't want to, if you restrict the players, there's going to be controversy. There's going to be a lot of flack. There's going to be a lot of pushback from not just the players, but from the fans, from all aspects, including from the upper portions, including the Supreme Court. They might even have some little bit of pushback from it. So it's an interesting thing to say. It's something to definitely think about.
Chris, what do you think?
I think in the end, I'd like to just kind of go to a point that you talked about with parity. And I don't think it's necessary. And where I want to spin parity is not amongst the nation, as amongst the teams, because let's just be honest with you. Like, hey, we can all, pinpoint Texas A&M and say, hey, Jimbo Fisher is a damn good coach, but I mean, the past couple of years, let's just be honest. But
it's no shame.
Outside of the COVID year, okay? But no, the way I would spin parity is that let's talk about parity within, because at the end of the day, this helps a lot of institutions, because now the D3, the NIAs and all the rest of that, NAIA, D2 schools like that, they could benefit from stuff like this as well, right? But at the same time, when you look at just focus on D1 schools, you're looking at different programs. I mean, hell, OU gymnastics, they damn near win net championships every other year, right? So you're looking at a lot of these other things aside, and it helps your institution with that stuff, because at the end of the day, it really helps your institution, because you're able to kind of boost your school, because now you got everybody that wants to go and see those kids play on those teams. Because I mean, I remember when I was at O State, obviously basketball was a big thing, but they had this girl, her name was Courtney DK, and she was a badass. She was a freshman. Everybody went to the soccer game just so they could see her. And you didn't really see stuff like that, but OSU really incentivized it for students on like, hey, you should go to this game. You pay the $250 to have season tickets for men's basketball. You get into every other game for free, right? So being able to do stuff like that makes players want to actually come to your school in all sports and all aspect of the university, sports, whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot when it comes to the NIL, and it is something that it will be sorted out, because inevitably when you have something new, you change it, right? Like, as with all things, you have your first draft and it gets changed since then. So it will get good, right? It's just when and how. But I think uniform legislation from the states is the absolute first way. Chris, you got a fan right here. And Eric, I thought we were homies.
I thought we were beefing. Hey, my question for Eric is, does he think that Nike money is going to factor into all their NIL deals?
Of course it should. Of course it should. They should be doing whatever they want, right? Like, they should be doing whatever they want from NIL. If I'm Phil Knight, I'm writing a check that's blank. I'm saying go now, right? It's just, I don't know. I'm of the mindset, though, that he says, yes, it already has. But he conveniently didn't mention, what's up, buddy? I thought we had an understanding. I feel like I've been tossed to the side. Jeez. God. I wish Bo Nix a mini picks for you.
Bo Pigs.
I'll turn over the ball 30 times. You don't even have to say that. We all know he's going to turn over the ball at least 30 times.
Hey, but I think Ty Thompson's going to end up winning that job at Oregon. I really do. I
Hopefully,
think
talented, man.
I think he's so talented.
Bo Nix holding a clipboard. Oh my god.
But man, that's about it from me. Jance, Chris, if y'all have anything to add, if not, let them know where they can find you.
Hey, you guys can find me at Chris with a K. It was on the screen just a little bit ago. You can also find me at the Horns Down Pod on Twitter. One half of that show with my boy Seth Oliveris. We're on Spotify. We're everywhere that you can find podcasts. Just look us up, the Horns Down Podcast. And, we're also on YouTube as well. But hey, Ty, thank you for letting us come on the show again. Obviously, this was a great conversation tonight.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, so you guys can find me my YouTube, Jance Sports. Twitter is Jance716. You want to follow me on Instagram, please follow me at Jance Sports also. For the most part, you want to stop by my channel. We talk, a lot of college football, a lot of NFL. We just talked about the Super Bowl a little bit earlier on. That was a really good game, one of the best halftime performances I think we've seen in a while. Really nostalgic. But yeah, man, wonderful to be on this platform again. Again, great conversation, just like Chris said, man. I'm excited to be back on here, potentially next week and for the future, man. It's going to be great. Where again, more NIL conversations, transfer portal, I think is going to get really hot during the spring. It's kind of crazy. We're 2 months away from spring football, right? And then after that, then we have the long off season where we can talk whatever we want to talk about. But yeah, man, I'm super excited for spring. It's going to be here extremely fast. Excited to watch some college football. Yeah, man, just great to be back here on the show.
Yeah, hey, this isn't good change. Y'all already know it. At least one stream a week, guys in the chat. This is the group, right? I started off streaming with these guys as I had my first streams on the channel. So this is at least once a week. You can expect these faces right here. Jance, to your point about the Super Bowl, before I let you go, I saw a meme that was great. It said, thank God that they finally got artists to perform for the Super Bowl that aren't for the old people, until you realize that you're now the old people that those artists are for. And I just put my head down and I was like, damn, they got me. But hey, it wasn't Katy Perry with Dancing Sharks. So
oh boy,
I will take it, right? It's an upgrade. I will take it. But as always, y'all, thank you for hanging out with us. Awesome that y'all are in here. It makes this stream so much more enjoyable as we bounce things off y'all. And likewise, it's just a great time. But we will see y'all next Monday, 5:30. As always, that's it. See ya.